So, good afternoon, gentlemen. This episode is episode number 4. Um, and this will be our June episode. My name's Luke. Lucas, take a second to introduce yourself.
My name's Lucas Sales. I'm MacDuff County agent. We are here in our good and old podcast Target Egg. Today we have a new person here, right, Luke? A new good
Yes,
friend.
yes. Yeah, good friend. And we're going to be talking about beef today. So, we asked Jacob to join us. Jacob, if you will, give us just a brief rundown of who you are, what your background is, and why you're going to educate us about beef today.
So my name is Jacob Atkinson. My undergrad is in animal science, both my associates and my bachelor's from ABAC. I got my start actually on a cow-calf farm in Lukes County. I grew up next door to him, but after I graduated college, I went to Clemson for a while, did some research over there with forages and beef cattle. So they asked me, I've got a little bit of a background in it. So Lucas and Luke asked me to come speak today.
Right. So I was actually with James Vaughn the other morning doing soil samples, and I dropped your name, and he said good things about you.
That's
And
good to hear then.
also too, I need to email your PDC and let them know that the alert training that you helped put together was a raging success, and they appreciated the work you did there too.
Good to know. Good to know.
So now the whole world knows.
Looks like you are
All
the
right.
really right guy for this today, Jacob.
All right. So, with beef, Jacob, what can you tell us about like the average herd size here in Georgia? And I guess we'll start there.
So, most common herd size is about 25 head. Out of Georgia, we have right at about 12,462 farms that beef farms, and about 10,000 of that fall under 50. So, our average sits right at about 25. We are primarily a cow calf state, meaning that our producers have mama cows, is the easiest way to explain it. A lot of people call them dams. But we have mamas that the whole goal is to produce a calf annually and sell that calf.
Okay,
Okay.
cool.
Jacob, I have a question actually. Just thinking about more to the perspective of someone that's gonna start something right now. And this person don't know anything about it. And like for example, I just have look. Let's put an example. Me, I want to to breed cow right now. So what should I do? What should I do? Like how long they live? Like how much they weigh? How much they cost me? All these things. Do you have like anything that for a person that is starting right now?
So I give you a great extension answer. It depends. So life
Well, right now cattle
expectancy.
prices are high, so it'd be hard to get in, wouldn't it?
Say that one more time.
I said cattle prices are high now, so would it be a good time or a bad time to get in?
That's a good one.
That's a really good question. That's a question of perspective. It's a great time to get in because if you got to get out quick, and the time's now to sell, like the market's good, but it's going to cost you more to get in. So if you get in at a lull in the market and then sell out at a high point, that's the way you make money.
Uh-huh.
But that's not a long term outlook because we can't. There are predictors in the market every year, and we can look at long term outlooks on the market, and we can say like right now we're in a trending down market. We should be replacing or like keeping replacement heifers so we can start building back up, which is generally what you see when the market starts to trend down. But currently, we're not. Our slaughter heifers are staying high. Therefore, that kind of leads you to think that okay, we're not keeping replacement heifers, so the market's not going to do anything. I mean, the market's going to keep climbing in price. So
Mhm.
it's kind of a rough time to be getting in, but at the same time, it's a good time if you need to make money fast.
Okay. 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 And like for example, what do you recommend for a person that like wants to start? The first thing, what do you recommend for this person?
Call you extension agent. That's first and foremost. Kind of get an idea of what's going on, what works in your county. I'm not gonna tell you to go buy a 500 head operation your first week. It's
That's
just not a wise choice. So call your extension agent, talk to producers in your county, talk to the guys. Right, a lot of these guys, if you're riding down the road and you see cows and you see somebody out in that pasture, they'll stop and talk to you. I mean,
mm-hmm.
most of them are extremely friendly. I don't say all, but most of them are friendly. Kind of talk to people around you, figure out what breeds work, what breeds don't work. I mean, we're not going to bring a belted Galloway down to South Georgia where I am and
Mm-hmm.
expect it to be great. We around here we use a lot more crossbreeds. So I mean, like I said, kind of giving you a few things to think about there. But talk to somebody, then once you've got your game plan, figure out what your budget is. Budget's a big thing right now, especially with the price of cows. If you go in and you buy four $5,000 cows, say just throwing a number out there, and your whole budget was 20 grand, you don't have a lot of money left over to make that work. And I mean, it's expensive right now to get into it, no matter whether you're fencing, you're putting water in, all the things. So,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, talk to somebody, budget, and have an end goal. If you plan to raise, I don't know, we'll say purebred Angus seed stock, and you're planning on selling bulls every spring or every summer, know that from the get go. Have a game plan to how you're planning to get to that point. Now, if you're just planning on selling calves every fall at a sale barn, you've got a little more wiggle room. But having that starting point and ending point will help keep through the track of it.
I see. I see. Good, man. Good. Thank you.
So, being more of a plant background kind of an individual, cows got to eat. And can you spend a minute talking about that? What is some of the ways that you manage your grazing? How do you establish grazing? You mentioned buying, 4 or 5 as a small starter herd. How much land do you need for stuff like that?
Sure. So the general rule of thumb is 2 acres per animal, like per head of cattle.
Okay.
It sometimes that's a very again that's a it depends. So that a lot of times depends on soil quality of those acres as well as management, the breeds you're running. A good example of that is to take 2 acres of rolling hills where you got nice, where y'all are is nice rolling hills versus
Right.
we'll take, say, Dade County, where you've got steep cliffs and not very great soil for growing grass. If you try to grow, I mean, that's going to have two different levels of forage mass on it. So there you have to
Right.
consider, well, it does it take 3 acres in the poor area, or does it take five? And it also matters if you what you put on that land. So if you put a 1,200 pound Angus on there, who's going to be pretty proficient at what she's using, what you've got in front of her, versus a 12,000 pound behemoth of an animal, they're going to need to eat different amounts. Therefore, you're going to need different size of area to raise each one of them. So again, it kind of depends in that sense. But
I've
then you
been
get
around
into
some
a
big
lot of
cows.
the
I don't want to see 12,000 pounds.
well, there's some breeds where you can get pretty big.
Right.
Like our Holsteins are huge. Our Holstein bulls, you're talking 2,000 to 2,700 pounds.
Wow.
So I mean,
Right.
they're big boys.
They
Yeah.
are.
But I mean, under that, when you start talking about your acreage you need, you have to start thinking about things like grazing methods. How are you going to manage that land, and how are you going to run those cows on it, basically? So, our
Mm,
kind of four common methods are continuous stocking, which is the most common we see. We throw these cows in the pasture. We don't bring them out of that pasture. They're going to live their life right there. We
mhm,
don't really do much with it. We might go in and plant some other stuff into that one pasture, but they're always there. And we kind of see what's called rotational stocking, and y'all have all seen it, especially with electric fences, where we may have a main pasture they stay in, or we have a big pasture and we're going to subdivide it up and then we're going to rotate them through to make them use that forage more proficiently. And
mhm.
then there's another way they call it sequential stocking. It's called limit grazing. I'm sure, Luke, if you go talk, they may not call it that, but if you go talk to the Vaughns, you'll see it very much with them. They like to have a main pasture they stay on, and then they have a secondary pasture of super high quality forage that they turn them into for short periods. It may be a day, it may be half a day, maybe 3 hours. You bring them in at one point, you take them out at another. So that's another option. Then we have what's called strip stocking. And the easiest way to describe that is take a football field. We try to football team goes down to down, or not down to down. Yeah, first down to first down. So if you think about it, if you take every 10 yards, we're using the football field, that's a strip. So you divide that field by strips and you're grazing that 10-yard section. So every time you restart that, you get a new first down, if that makes sense there.
Mhm.
No, it does, but how do you isolate that? Are you out there constantly moving electric fences? Or are you using a wireless collar? How do you, I mean, because
So,
the cow don't care where your 10 yards is.
oh yeah.
Right.
So a lot of that is again when we go back to how you want to set your place up in your management. So some of your early decisions. So I spent a lot of time with electric fence. I did about 2 years of grazing trials with electric fence. So I am quite proficient with them. My father, on the other hand, tried to put one up for his goats and they walked right through it. So electric fence is a great option if you're willing and know what you're doing. You can
Okay.
learn. It's really easy to learn. It sometimes will get you. You'll find out when you did something wrong when you touch it. But you can use electric fence, or I've known people to set their pastures up where they intend to do it that way from the jump. So they make permanent fencing. So their whole pasture is divided up with permanent fencing.
Hmm.
And then, of course, we're getting into the world of technology. And I'm sure if y'all follow this podcast, y'all saw me get shocked a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
We are
that
moving
got a
into
few
more
thousand
technology
views,
where
I
they can
think. You
use.
may be the most popular short clip on
Yes,
this.
on the podcast.
My father-in-law got a good kick out of that one.
You did too.
But no, there is, like I said, there's technology coming along, like the virtual collar, not virtual, the electric collars, things of that nature. And I think in the next 10 years, we're going to see a lot more of that. Right now, I think we're mostly going to stick with the electric fences, but that's because that's a tried and true for somebody who's rotationally grazing, strip grazing, all of those things, and all those. These are just four common ways. We could talk about that and spend 2 hours talking. So there's 1.5 million ways to do it, but those guys or gals a lot of times are used to the electric fences. They're very proficient with them. So I think that method we're going to kind of stick with for a while. But I could be wrong. We'll see in the next coming years if the collars pick up and take off.
Hmm. Good.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
I have a question
Uh,
for you. If my question is how should a producer, how should a farmer like base his should base his choice of forage? Like for example, Bermuda or fescue. Like how the farmer can know which one is better. Like just depends of where you are located, or depends of your animal. How he can like decide that? Do you know?
So fescue is one of the funny ones. So fescue grows in adaptations on B, which y'all are kind of on the edge of. Y'all fall right above me because y'all are about an hour north if you drove straight up, if we drew a
Yeah.
straight line. So y'all are on
right.
the
Yeah.
edge of
For
fescue.
the audience here in Monroe County is the most central part of Georgia. We are in the middle in every way, shape, and form. McDuffie, you're what, a little east and north of me,
Or
and then Scriven, you're east and south of me, right?
Yep, I'm about 4 hours southeast of you
Okay.
on
Yeah.
the river. So I'm in deep
We
sand, so we can't grow fescue at all here.
right. We
Yeah.
have some older pastures with some fescue that is trying to be pushed out.
Mhm.
It's no longer desirable here.
I
But
see.
no, so the question of fescue versus Bermuda versus Bahia for your base sod, that really is going to depend on one, where you are in the state, two, what you're trying to do with it. So let's just say, for the most part, fescue rules anything north of basically y'all. for the most part. It's hard to beat it up there. It grows good. It's got 2 growing seasons a year, one large, one small growing season. And it's kind of one giant, but you have to actually look at a graph of how it grows.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, it's always going to win up there. It establishes well, it takes well, it doesn't take much to manage it up there. But when you get down to where I am is when you start making decisions on Bahia or Bermuda. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I've had people ask me that of what should I do? And I'm like, well, how much do you want to manage it is the real question. How much time do you have? Do you want a pasture that you can go out there every 5 years and throw some fertilizer to it, maybe spray some chemical on it and never have to worry about it again? Or you want something you're going to have to go out there every year. You're going to have to soil sample, or maybe not every year, but pretty much every year. You're going to have to soil sample. You may need to put something to it, but it's going to yield significantly higher and honestly has better nutritional value.
Mm-hmm.
So if we take Bermuda, Bermuda is kind of one of those funny ones. It is either the toughest grass you'll ever see or the most wimpy grass you'll ever see. It likes to be babied in some varieties it doesn't have to be at all. So that's the one. If you've got time to manage your pastures, take care of the weeds, make sure your fertility looks good, and really make sure you don't overgraze it. A lot of the issues I find with Bermuda grass are pH issues. I've had several of those in the last couple of months with people asking about questions they had from the last year. But so, I mean, generally, it's a really good grass. And if you ask me which one's better, Bahia or Bermuda is always going to be better than Bahia,
Mm-hmm.
but they both serve their purpose. Now, when you get down to areas like I'm in, and we have a lot of places that were pine trees at one point or have a high pH because generally not a low pH because we generally have a lower pH than y'all. Bahia really comes in there. It doesn't tolerate pH quite as bad, like a low pH quite as bad, but it will tolerate it. But we have a lot of pine trees, cut over pine trees, areas that were pines that are now getting turned into pasture, and they tend to be not great on nutrients. They tend to be low pHs, used up nutrients. Pine trees leach a lot of it out of the soil because they reach so deep that Bahia will grow back in those areas. And you can actually grow Bahia under pine trees. It's one of the few grasses that grows really well under pine trees if you were trying to get into silver pastures. But it doesn't, it's not as nutritionally dense. It's not as dense with mass, but it does serve its purpose here. And of course, with y'all's producers, y'all probably be falling more along the lines of the Bermuda being better. But down where I am, we kind of have to have that conversation of what are you trying to do and what ground are you working with.
I see.
But on top of that, I mean, you think about that. Fescue is kind of a cool season grass. It's got a growing slump. It grows in the fall and it grows in the spring. But in the wintertime, we deal with our base sods dying off. So then we have to get into annuals.
Right. So to just kind of touch on that for a second, around here, a lot of what I'm hearing and learning is you've got your high octane Bermuda grass, and it makes a better hay, and they'll even call that horse hay. And then when you do talk about Bahia, it's a little lower, it's a little slower. It doesn't have quite the nutrient punch, but it's also more drought tolerant. It's also harder to kill, and it's got less pest issues to deal with. So yeah, that's exactly what I'm hearing around here. And I'm actually looking at kind of encouraging some people to think Bermuda hayfield, Bahia pasture.
I've got a few guys that do that. They don't take the time. Time's not really the right way to put it. They don't have the time is the better way to put it.
Right.
Okay.
To really manage pastures as well as they could, but they've got time for hay fields. They really do a good job on their hay fields, so they do have Bermuda grass hay fields and Bahia pastures, especially when we consider a lot of our down here, a lot of our pasture may be I mean, 100 acres, 200 acres that they're fenced off, they may run on it every year for, I don't know, 6 months, and they're not going to touch it again until the next year. So they're not going to put a lot of time and effort into these, or they're looking to have something quick and fast and easy that
Right.
they've tried Bermuda. It took too long. Now they're running Bahia into it.
Mhm.
Cool. So why don't we spend a minute or two talking about the annuals and whatnot that kind of back up the bulk season?
Now you're getting into my specialty. This is what I did for 2 years. So annuals are fun. We get to do a lot of interesting stuff. We can fill a lot of needs with annuals. So you think about it, in the most of our start with most of our annuals we grow in the wintertime. We do have some summertime options, but when you think about it, most people think cool season annuals. So a lot of times we use it to fill in the gap where otherwise we'd have to feed hay because we don't have a Bermuda grass or a Bahia grass growing because it's dormant for the year. Uh, I know in Luke's area, because I spent some time up there, if you ask somebody what they're planting for cool season grazing, they're going to tell you ryegrass and red or crimson clover. That is the two big ones in your area. I don't really
Right.
know about McDuffie County, but when you come down to my area, we get into a lot more fun things. So in the wintertime, we can use things like cereal grains, so your rye, your oats, your wheat. We do a lot of that down here. Some of the triticale, which are, we call them cereal grains or small grains, because if you let them go to seed, they will put out a head that we do make, our, that is our grains. So, and there are some studies going on over at Clemson where they're using small grains for grazing and then turning around and harvesting them. But around here, we generally don't worry about that because we don't want them to head out. Once they head out, the nutritional value goes down, the, the palate feel, because they don't like that seed head. So the cows won't touch it. And then you wind up with issues like pink eye, which is a whole nother problem with that. But we use a lot of those to fill in the gaps. And then, of course, we use ryegrass. Ryegrass is wonderful. It's something, once you get it out there, a lot of times it's hard to get rid of, but it's really nutritious. It's got a lot of mass. It produces very fast. And honestly, it's relatively easy. It's not one of the harder ones to grow. Along with that, we've got some of our, we'll just kind of stick with the grasses for a second. We'll jump to the warm season. We've got some of our warm seasons like our pearl millets, our brown top millets, our sorghums, our sorghum Sudans, and then crabgrass. And I know most people hear crabgrass and immediately think weed, but crabgrass is actually one of our most nutritious grasses we have,
Mhm.
but most people consider it a weed. I
Right.
used
Well,
to
a weed
plant
is only a weed whenever it's planted in the wrong spot. So yeah, for
exactly.
cattle, it's not a weed, it's a great feed. And for your
Mhm.
sod in your front yard, get rid of that crabgrass.
Oh yeah, I used to plant in research trials pearl millet, sorghum Sudan, sun hemp, crabgrass, and iron clay peas mixed together, and we'd have forage that was head high that the cows couldn't even keep up with. So I mean,
Right.
there's management comes into that point. But no, that's some of your warm season grasses. I know of several people that what they'll do is they'll go back to grazing. We'll talk about sequential grazing or
Mhm.
sequential stocking, where they have pastures that are really high in nutrition. They're planting these annuals, and they have their base sod pastures where they're putting them back, say at night. You know, they're grazing that and they're allowing it to be the highest part, but not turning them in completely where they're just grazing it down or stomping it down. Because I'm sure anybody who's done a lot of grazing work will tell you cows like to stomp down stuff. They destroy a portion of it no matter how great it is and how much they want to eat it. There's a certain percentage that's going to get stomped. But we also have some things like our legumes, and I'm really going to focus on the cool season. That's what majority of people know. If you ask our forage specialist for the state, the one I love so much, she told me not to even tell anybody to use. So, but with our cool seasons, we have a lot of clovers, and clover is very specific to the area it grows well. like we already mentioned, crimson grows really well up where Luke is. It also grows really well where Lucas is, and then where I am too. So crimson's a great one. It grows all across the state really well. But when you get to the northern parts of the state, you start thinking about you can get some of the white clovers, the red clovers. Arrowleaf is kind of one of those that it's funny where it grows. It might grow on your neighbor's place and it may not grow on yours.
Mhm.
So it kind of picky where it likes to grow. I've seen it get chest high, and I planted it for 2 years straight and couldn't get it to come up. So
Yeah.
it's picky. Then we kind
Okay.
of run in some of the other ones we use are your vetches. So I personally like Cahaba White and Patagonia, but there's several other varieties. Those are just the ones I've worked with, and they grow really well when they're interseeded with something taller because they're kind of a viney plant, and they have a nice little purple flower.
Yeah. So around here, we've got a lot of vetch that grows just kind of on its own wild and does really well. I have planted a massive amount of crimson clover and sunhill as
Mhm.
cover crops in the orchard industries. Um, and they do fantastic around here. They're very dependable. So yeah, I foresee those being continuing to be useful for a long time. I I was told don't waste my time, but I'd love to see a little bit more research in Sunhill. There is a state that shall not be named next to us that has a neat little flyer that I have noticed. I'll say that. But yeah, it's something I'm intrigued by.
When was that flower made? In the last 2 to 3 years?
Do what?
Was the flower made in the last 2 to 3 years about it?
I didn't really. I'm not 100% certain. I think it's pretty new, but I
Because if it's the state
I
I
don't
believe
still
you're
have it
talking
pulled
about,
up.
I grew that sun hemp.
Maybe was you.
It very well could have been. So
Yeah, that's one. Sun hemp is a great tool, but it takes a lot of management. It is not for the beginner because it'll get away from you. It'll get too tall. The cows won't touch it. Or you'll wind up with basically a tree in your pasture. It's
right,
not
it does
quite
get
that thick.
very lignity really fast. It
Mhm.
gets woody really fast.
Yeah.
It does.
Jacob, when we talk about rotational grazing, do you see any resistance from the farmers or no? What do you think about it?
So the biggest resistance I tend to find is, well, that's gonna take more time. I don't have time for that. And yes, it does take more time, but then I asked the question of, okay, yes, it takes you this time to move these cows, but how much time are you spending putting out hay every day? I know I used to spend I get to the farm at 11 o'clock and I'd be on track till 3, 4 in the afternoon putting out hay. And I did that from December to, I mean, most times March.
Mhm.
4 or 5 hours a day putting out hay. And if we could cut back, say, I don't know, cut one of those days out a week. So if we cut 5 hours out a week, it kind of works itself out to where what the time removing cows and putting fence up. So you're not, and also your cost. I mean, your fencing is generally a continuous cost that you're going to have to repair a few things. You're going to have to buy more wire. But the
Okay.
biggest parts of it, like your chargers, which is your electric boxes,
Mhm.
a good box, you can get 5 years out of it. So that takes some of the cost off too. And that's some of the ways I've been able to talk to producers before and say, hey, yes, this is going to take time that you don't think you have, but when you cut out so many bales, how to put out so many bales a week, that cost right there is one thing, but then you've also got your time back. So you've got the time that you just don't realize you have.
Okay.
What about some of the costs that are a little bit harder to measure? Because, like for example, when you are rotational grazing, you're potentially um, better managing your soil health, which gets expensive real fast when you're trying to rebuild it.
It does. So when we think about we're planting annuals into it, which is a lot of what we're using for the rotational grazing. We can rotationally graze Bermuda, Bahia, fescue. I have done it. You can do it, but when we start really talking about it, most people think of annuals because we rotate onto them. So when you're thinking with soil health, you're having to think about your fertility more than one time a year. You're not thinking about I've got Bermuda grass. I'm going to go run a soil test maybe 3 years to make sure that I'm just not killing it. Basically, you've got to think about every year. I've got what do I need to get this crop up? Because at the end of the day, and I had a professor tell me this one time, we may be cow farmers, but at the end of the day, our first priority is growing grass.
Mhm.
So you've got to go back and think about then, okay, what is my soil doing that I can grow this grass in even more because you are managing it so much heavier. So, I mean, in that thought, you are spending a little more sometimes on because of things of that nature. Your fertility has to stay up, but you're building organic matter the whole time. And you know, when you consistently manage your soil, you're not going to have it's like if you think about a graph, you're going to go up the graph, and at some point, you're going to hit your peak cost. And then over time, it's going to slope back down where you're not spending as much every year because you're not needing it. So your cost may be higher in the jump, but over time, you're not going to need, you may not need, I don't know, we'll take, say, 2 tons of nitrogen. That's kind of high. I don't know, say you don't need a 200 pounds of nitrogen to the acre on year 5 that you needed on year 1.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Well, gentlemen, we are kind of coming up on the 30-minute mark.
That's right.
Lucas, do you have any last thoughts?
I do.
Okay.
Actually, just a question to help anyone that is starting or have something like this right now. Just if you could give like a single one piece of advice, like to the farmer that wants to improve without spending too much, without like increasing the production cost so much. So, what advice do you have like for this kind of people?
That's a good question because
If
there's
you
a
know,
lot
of
of
course,
ways
my
you could
friend.
go with that. Uh, so if we're going to talk about our grazing and all of that, and we're thinking in that world, run a soil test. I know ours are relatively cheap. I don't know what y'all's running in y'all's county, but knowing what you have there, what your nutrients look like at the soil, it doesn't really add much to your cost. And then you can actually know and you can say, okay, this is why I'm not getting this, or, all the benefits of knowing what you actually have nutrient wise. Then, if you're thinking about cattle management, ear tags all day, cattle identification, it helps you in so many ways.
That's right. That's right. Amazing.
And,
Amazing, my friend. So I think we're all set, Luke. What do you think? We have more time or we are in
uh,
the
no, I mean, I think time-wise, for just as far as the episode goes, I think we need to kind of go ahead and bring this to an end. Really, I think we probably could spend several episodes doing stuff like this because we didn't even talk about veterinarians and a relationship there. We didn't talk about um, cattle working equipment, squeeze gates, any of that stuff. So
Well,
there's
we
there's
could deep
so many
dive
more
into what we've talked
aspects.
about.
we can dive on this.
I mean,
That's
may
already if I'm sorry, Luke, to interrupt you, but that's
yeah,
already
go
like
ahead.
an invite. If you Jacob want to come here more, you are just invited already, my brother, to speak a
Yes,
little bit about beef. Like we are so happy that you're here. Really, thank you very much
right.
for that.
Yeah, we're not. This is not official, but maybe there's a beef series coming up.
Yes,
Oh
I
yeah,
like that.
that's I can't say I know everything, but I know a little bit and enough to get us
Right.
through.
Well, if anybody has any other questions, always reach out to your extension agent. UGA has a beef team. They do another phenomenal podcast. It's almost as good as this one, and they've got a whole team of specialists up there. Very, very good guys. That's where we get most of our information from. So
That's
check them out. Jacob, I want to say thank you for coming on today and being with us.
Absolutely. Thank y'all for having
All
me.
right.
Thank you very
I'm going
much.
to end with y'all be safe, and if y'all got anything else,
Y'all
let's
be
go.
safe. Have an amazing weekend and see you next.
All right. See you
Bye,
next
guys.
time. Y'all be safe.
Bye bye.